Hello there, Scott Telek, author of The Swithin, the Arthurian book series that will tickle your fancy. And we're continuing our guided reading of Sir Thomas Malory's Morte d'Arthur, and we're right in the middle of a huge battle, so let's get right to it. Then King Arthur and King Ban and King Bors with their good and trusty knights set upon them so fiercely that he made them overthrow their pavilions on their heads. But the 11 kings by manly prowess of arms took a fair campaign, but there was slain that morrow 10,000 good men's bodies. And so they had afore them a strong passage, yet were they 50,000 hardy men. Then it drew toward day. Now shall you do by mine advice, said Merlin unto the three kings. I would that King Ban and King Bors with their fellowship of 10,000 men were put in a wood here beside, in an ambushment, and keep them privy that they be laid till the light of day come, and that they stir not until you and your knights have fought with them long. And when it is daylight, dress your battle even afore them and the passage, that they may see all your host, for then they will be the more hardy when they see you but about 10,000, and cause them to be gladder to suffer you and your host to come over the passage. All three kings and the whole barons said that Merlin said passingly well, and it was done anon as Merlin had devised. So Arthur and his men execute a surprise attack in the middle of the night while their enemies are sleeping in their tents. This means that not only are they there in their tents, but they have to overthrow the pavilions on their heads, which means dig out from within their collapsed tents. Then they have to go put their armor on, which usually requires the help of someone else to do, and get to their horses. So for a while here, Arthur and his knights are just able to strike them down without too much effort. Then in the second paragraph, Merlin gives them the strategy. Now in some versions of the legend, Merlin is very much like a military general, but in this telling he just uses his knowledge of the future and knowledge of everything in general to give Arthur the advantage. So he tells them again to put a bunch of knights in the forest, which we kind of already knew, but what he tells them that's really clever is to wait for the morning light, because they are in the middle of the night right then, and put a certain amount of knights in front of the enemy very conspicuously so they see them. And the reason for that is they'll think, oh, that's all the knights they have, and they'll grow overconfident. And they also won't reserve any energy for a long-term fight. Then, when the time is right, Arthur's whole other army will come streaming out of the forest. Pretty brilliant, right? Okay, so with that in mind, can I tell you something else, Brian, that happened in the story before Arthur came on the scene? This was a battle with the Saxons that happened during the reign of King Pendragon, who was King Uther's older brother. So this is long before Arthur was born, and it's not covered in Morte d'Arthur. The Saxons were trying to sneak back into the country to attack. Merlin advised King Pendragon to let them land and march inward, and then have knights get behind them so they could see, one, that their surprise was gone, and two, that they can't retreat and get back to their ships. He says to make sure they see you so they know they've lost the element of surprise. Then he told them to have other troops keep them from getting to the river so they can't get any water. And he holds them there for 3 days without access to water, and then says attack on the day after that. So he did some early psychological operations, or psyops, to let them know that their surprise was lost and they couldn't retreat if they wanted to. And then he physically weakened the knights by denying them water for 3 days and then attacked. Pretty brilliant, right? That story's told in book 2 of my series. Anyway, so the next few paragraphs are all battle, 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 battle. So let's dive into that, and we'll pick up at the end of chapter 15 with a great dramatic moment. So on the morn when either host saw each other, the host of the north was well comforted. Then to Ulfius and Brastias were delivered 3,000 men of arms, and they set on them fiercely in the passage, and slew on the right hand and on the left hand, that it was wonder to tell. When that the 11 kings saw that so few a fellowship did such deeds of arms, they were ashamed, and set on them again fiercely. And there was Sir Ulfius's horse slain under him, but he did marvellously well on foot. But the Duke Eustace of Cambrai and King Clarivance of Northumberland were always grievous on Ulfius. Then Brastias saw his fellow fared so withal, he smote the Duke with the spear, and that horse and man fell down. That saw King Clarivance, and returned unto Brastias, and either smote each other, so that horse and man went to the earth, and so they lay long astonied, and their horses' knees burst to the hard bone. Then came Sir Kay the seneschal with 6 fellows with him, and did passing well. With that came the 11 kings, and there was Griflet put to the earth, horse and man, and Lucan the butler, horse and man, by King Brandegoris and King Idris and King Agwisance. Then waxed the middle passage hard on both parties. When Sir Kay saw Griflet on foot, he rode on King Nentris, and smote him down, and laid his horse unto Sir Griflet, and horsed him again. Also Sir Kay with the same spear smote down King Lot, and hurt him passing sore. That saw the king of the 100 knights, and ran unto Sir Kay, and smote him down, and took his horse, and gave him to King Lot, whereof he said, Gramercy. When Sir Griflet saw Sir Kay and Lucan the butler on foot, he took a sharp spear great and square, and rose to Pinel, a good man of arms, and smote horse and man down, and then he took his horse, and gave him to Sir Kay. Then King Lot saw Sir Nentris on foot, and he ran unto Malo de la Roche, and smote him down horse and man, and gave King Nentris the horse, and horsed him again. Also the king with 100 knights saw King Idris on foot, and he ran into Guimart de la Boye, and smote him down horse and man, to give King Idris the horse, and horsed him again. And King Lot smote down Clairvaux de la Forest Sauvage, and gave the horse to King Eustace. And so when they had horsed the kings again, they drew them all 11 together, and said they would be revenged of the damage they had taken that day. Then meanwhile came in Sir Ector with an eager countenance, and found Ulfius and Brastias on foot in great peril of death, that were foul defiled under horses' feet. Then Arthur as a lion ran unto King Cradlement of North Wales, and smote him through the left side, that the horse and the king fell down. And then he took the horse by the reins, and led him unto Ulfius, and said, Have this horse, my old friend, for great need have you of horse. Gramercy, said Ulfius. Then Sir Arthur did so marvellously in arms, that all men had wonder. When the king with the 100 knights saw King Cradlement on foot, he ran unto Sir Ector that was well horsed, Sir Kay's father, and smote horse and man down, and gave the horse unto the king, and horsed him again. When King Arthur saw the king ride on Sir Ector's horse, he was wroth, and with his sword he smote the king on the helmet, that a quarter of the helmet and shield fell down, and so the sword carved down into the horse's neck, and so the king and the horse fell down to the ground. Then Sir Kay came unto Sir Morganor, seneschal to the king with 100 knights, and smote him down, horse and man, and led the horse unto his father, Sir Ector. Then Sir Ector ran unto a knight called Lardans, and smote horse and man down, and led the horse unto Sir Brastias, that had great need of a horse, and was greatly defiled. When Brastias beheld Lucan the butler lay like a dead man under the horse's feet, and ever Sir Griflet did marvellously for to rescue him, and there were always 14 knights on Sir Lucan, and then Brastias smote one of them on the helm, that it went to the teeth, and he rode to another, and smote him that the arm flew into the field. Then he went to the third, and smote him on the shoulder, that shoulder and arm flew in the field. And when Griflet saw rescues, he smote a knight on the temples, that head and helm went to the earth. And Griflet took the horse of that knight, and led him unto Sir Lucan, and bade him mount upon the horse, and revenge his hurts. For Sir Brastias had slain a knight tofore, and horsed Griflet. Then Lucan saw Agwisance that late had slain Maurice de la Roche, and Lucan ran to him with a short smear that was great, and he gave him such a fall that the horse fell down to the earth. Also Lucan found there on foot Bloius de la Flanders and Sir Guinas, 2 hardy knights, and in that wood that Lucan was in, he slew 2 bachelors, and horsed them again. Then waxed the battle passing hard on both parties, and Arthur was glad that his knights were horsed again. And then they fought together, that the noise and sound rang by the water and the wood. Wherefore King Ban and King Bors made them ready, and dressed their shields and harness, and they were so courageous that many knights shook and bevered for eagerness. All this while Lucan and Guinas and Bryant and Belias of Flanders held strong mettle against 6 kings, that was King Lot, King Nentris, King Brandegoris, King Idris, King Uriens, and King Agwisance. So with the help of Sir Kay and Sir Griflet, they held these 6 kings hard, that they had any power to defend them. But when Sir Arthur saw the battle would not be ended by no manner, he fared wood as a lion, and steered his horse here and there on the right hand and on the left hand, that he stint not until he had slain 20 knights. Also he wounded King Lot sore on the shoulder, and made him to leave that ground. And Sir Kay and Sir Griflet did with King Arthur there great deeds of arms. Then Ulfius and Brastias and Sir Ector encountered against the Duke Eustace and King Cradlement and King Clarivance of Northumberland, and King Carados against the king with the 100 knights. So these knights encountered with these kings that they made them to avoid the ground. Then King Lot made great dole for his damages and his fellows, and said unto the 10 kings, But if you do as I devise, we shall be slain and destroyed. Let me have the king with the 100 knights, and King Agwisance and King Idris, and the Duke of Camabene, and we 5 kings will have 15,000 men of arms with us, and we will go on part, while you 6 kings hold mettle with 12,000. And when we see that you have fought with them long, then will we come on fiercely, and else shall we never match them, said King Lot, but by this means. So they departed, and here they devised, and 6 kings made their party strong against Arthur, and made great war long. In the meanwhile broke the ambushment of King Ban and King Bors, and Lionsings and Pharians had the avant-guard, and they 2 knights met with King Idris and his fellowship, and there began a great medley of breaking of spears and smiting of swords, with slaying of men and horses, and King Idris was near at discomfiture. That saw Agwisance the king, and put Lions's and Pharians in point of death, for the Duke of Cambrai came on withal with a great fellowship. So these 2 knights were in great danger of their lives, that they were fain to return, but always they rescued themselves and their fellowship marvellously. When King Bors saw those knights put aback, it grieved him sore. Then he came on so fast that his fellowship seemed as black as Indy. When King Lot had espied King Bors, he knew him well. Then he said, O Jesu, defend us from death and horrible maims, for I see well we are in great peril of death. I see yonder a king, one of the most worshipful men and the best knights in the world, be inclined to his fellowship. What is he? Said the king with 100 knights. It is, said King Lot, King Bors of Gaul. I marvel how they came into this country without witting of us all. It was by Merlin's advice, said the knight. As for him, said King Carados, I will encounter with King Bors, and you will rescue me when Mr. is. Go on, said they all, we will do that as we may. Then King Carados and his host rode on a soft pace till that they came as nigh King Bors as a bow draught. Then either let their horse run as fast as they might. And Bleoberis, that was godson unto King Bors, he bore his chief standard, that was a passing good knight. Now shall we see, said King Bors, how these northern Britons can bay their arms. And King Bors encountered with a knight, and smote him throughout with a spear, that he fell dead unto the earth, and after drew his sword, and did marvellous deeds of arms, that all parties had great wonder thereof. And his knights failed not, but did their part, and King Carados was smitten to the earth. With that came the king with 100 knights, and rescued King Carados mightily by force of arms. For he was a passing good knight, and of a king, and but a young man. So basically this is awesome, because King Lot has this moment where he's completely stunned and dumbfounded, both because he knows King Ban and King Bors are some of the best warriors with the best knights, but also he's amazed they were able to get them into the country without any of them knowing. And when he asked Jesus to defend him from death and horrible maims, well, kind of hard to beat that. Now there's a lot more battle, and I'm not really going to comment on it all, but if you go through it, you see it's punctuated by some nice interludes of courtesy and helpfulness between the knights and King Arthur with King Ban and King Bors. By then came into the field King Ban, as fierce as a lion, with bands of green, and thereupon gold. Ha! Ah, said King Lot, we must be discomfit, for yonder I see the most valiant knight of the world, and the man of the most renown. For such 2 brethren as is King Ban and King Bors are not living. Wherefore we must needs void or die, and but if we avoid manly and wisely, there's but death. When King Ban came into the battle, he came in so fiercely that the strokes resounded again from the wood and the water. Wherefore King Lot wept for pity and dole that he saw so many good knights take their end. But through the great force of King Ban they made both the northern battles that were departed hurtle together for great dread, and the 3 kings and their knights slew on ever that it was pity to behold the multitude of the people that fled. But King Lot and the king of the 100 knights and King Morganor gathered the people together, passing nightly, and did great prowess of arms, and held the battle all that day like hard. When the king of the 100 knights beheld the great damage that King Ban did, he thrust unto him with his horse, and smote him high upon the helmet a great stroke that astonied him sore. Then King Ban was wroth with him, and followed on him fiercely. The other saw that, and cast up his shield, and spurred his horse forward. But the stroke of King Ban fell down, and carved a cantle off the shield. And the sword slid down by the hauberk behind his back, and cut through the trapper of steel, and the horse even in 2 pieces, that the sword fell to the earth. Then the king of the 100 knights voided the horse lightly, and with his sword he broached the horse of King Ban through and through. With that, King Ban voided lightly from the dead horse, and then King Ban smote at the other so eagerly, and smote him on the helm, that he fell to the earth. Also in that ire he felled King Morganor, and there was great slaughter of good knights and much people. By then came into the press King Arthur, and found King Ban standing among dead men and dead horses, fighting on foot as a wood lion, that there came none nigh him as far as he might reach with his sword, but he caught a grievous buffet, whereof King Arthur had great pity. And Arthur was so bloody that by his shield might no man know him, for all was blood and brains on his sword. And as King Arthur looked by him, he saw a knight that was passingly well horsed, and therewith Sir Arthur ran to him, and smote him on the helm, that his sword went unto his teeth, and the knight sank down to the earth dead. And anon Arthur took the horse by the reins, and led him unto King Ban, and said, Fair brother, have this horse, for you have great mister thereof, and me repent the sore of your great damage. So I want to draw attention to a passage midway through chapter 16 where it says that Arthur is so covered by blood and brains that no one could know him by his shield. In the Arthurian world, we have to remember that a knight in armor has his face completely covered, so the only way a person can be identified in battle is by his shield. Every knight has his own distinctive design on his shield, and by this you know who he is. There are whole stories in the legend that turn on this inability to tell who a knight is when he's in armor, including the plot of Book 2, which is coming up next. So you just have to remember that once a knight is in his helmet and the armor's on, you cannot tell them apart except by their shields. But this image of King Arthur completely red and covered in blood and brains. Vivid image, huh? And I don't think he was just giving his enemies a timeout. Another thing about Arthur that'll be commented on later is that he wins the respect of his knights because he's right there fighting alongside them, and he puts himself in danger just as they do. So he's not off protected in some tent somewhere surrounded by guards. And this passage here is an important part of contributing to that image. Anyway, so now there's a bunch more battle, so let's go on. It shall soon be revenged, said King Ban, for I trust in God that some of them may sore repent this. I will well, said Arthur, for I see your deeds full actual. Nevertheless, I might not come at you at that time. But when King Ban was mounted on horseback, then there began new battle, the which was sore and hard, and passing great slaughter. And so through great force, King Arthur, King Ban, and King Bors made their knights a little to withdraw them. But always the 11 kings with their chivalry never turned back, and so withdrew them to a little wood, and so over a little river. And there they rested them, for on the night they might have no rest on the field. And then the 11 kings and knights put them all in a heap together as men adread and out of all comfort. There was no man might pass them. They held so hard together both behind and before that King Arthur had marvel of their deeds of arms and was passing wroth. Ah, Sir Arthur, said King Ban and King Bors, blame them not, for they do as good men ought to do. For by my faith, said King Ban, they are the best fighting men and knights of most prowess that ever I saw or heard speak of. Those 11 kings are men of great worship, and if they were belonging to you, there were no knight under the heavens had such 11 knights and of such worship. I may not love them, said Arthur. They would destroy me. That wot you well, said King Ban and King Bors, for they are your mortal enemies, and that hath been proved aforehand. On this day they have done their part, and that is great pity on their wilfulness. Arthur, Ban, and Bors talk about the skill and prowess of the 11 kings coming against them. Prowess, that is fighting skill and ability, is a big thing in the Arthurian world, and we're going to get back into that more later. But here's an example to sock away for that time. Arthur, Ban, and Bors admire the skill of the enemy even as they go up against them, and they say, don't blame them for attacking you. They do as good men ought to do. And that if these 11 kings were on your side, no king could have a better army. So this is a form of chivalry, that they can admire the skill of their enemy even as that enemy is trying to kill them. Then all the 11 kings drew them together, and then said King Lot, Lords, you must other ways than you do, or else the great loss is behind. You may see what people we have lost, and what good men we lose, because we wait always on these footmen. And ever in saving one of the footmen, we lose 10 horsemen for him. Therefore this is my advice. Let us put our footmen from us, for it is near night. For the noble Arthur will not tarry on the footmen, for they may save themselves, since the wood is near at hand. And when we horsemen are together, look each of you kings, let make such ordinance that none break upon pain of death. And who that sees any man dress him to flee, lightly that he be slain, for it is better that we slay a coward, than through a coward all we to be slain. How say you, said King Lot? Answer me, all you kings. It is well said, quoth King Nentrus, and so said the king of the 100 knights. The same said King Carados and King Uriens, so did King Idris and King Brandigoris, and so did King Cradlement and the Duke of Cambonay. The same said King Clairvance and King Aguisance, and swore they would never fail other, neither for life nor for death. And whoso that fled but did as they did should be slain. Then they amended their hardness, and righted their shields, and took new spears, and set them on their thighs, and stood still as it had been a plum of wood. In the second to last paragraph, we get some interesting military strategy as King Lot gets all the kings together and says men on horseback, aka horsemen, are worth more than men on foot, that is, footmen. And thus we should stop trying to save men on foot because we lose 10 horsemen trying to save one footman. Secondly, he says that all our horsemen need to stay together so they can all make a wall of horses that can charge the enemy. But they're having trouble with men on horseback deserting, and this ruins the whole wall effect they're going for. So he says if you see a man on horseback turning to flee, kill him, even though he's supposedly on their side, because, and this is a beautifully poetic phrase, better we slay a coward than through a coward we be slain. And then they fight some more and that's it. We'll come back for chapter 17 when the battle finally ends.